Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're doing a Q&A celebrating the 10K subscribers. I really wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who has been showing me so much support and love. Without you, I really couldn't have survived my London life either. So I really thank you. And surprisingly enough, I didn't get a single question about my age, my height, or my ideal type, MBTI, all these basic questions that usually most YouTubers get. So it's fine, but most of my questions have very long answers because they get really deep, so be prepared. You will really get to know me well after watching this video. Without further ado, I'm going to read out all the questions that I have received from my Instagram. And for those of you who haven't still followed me on Instagram, please feel free to do so because I also upload my daily stuff over there. So without further ado, let's begin. 꿈이 무엇인가요? To be the best version of myself. You mentioned that you have lived in 4 different countries, in South Korea, United States, Germany, and the UK. Which one feels most like home? All these places have all shaped me and affected me in their own unique ways. Obviously, my first home will be South Korea because that's where I was born in. My family lives here. But I also have grown up in the United States most of my teenage years and also in my 20s, which is a critical time of a citizen's life when one forms his and her own cultural identity. So after I came back from the UK, I actually wrote this down in my journal about the places that I have lived in. So this is what I wrote. 미국은 내가 어떻게 살아가야 하는지를 보여준 곳이고, 한국은 다시금 돌아와서 치열하게, 혹독하게 사는 것에 대해서 트레이닝 시켜주고 단련시켜준 곳. 독일은 내가 사랑하는 음악가들의 아름다움과 그들의 삶, 그들의 숨결, 그리고 역사에 대해서 다시 한번 알아볼 수 있었던 곳. 그리고 마지막으로 영국은 나에게 진짜 세상 또는 세계는 어떤 곳인지 알게 해준 곳이라고 적어봤었습니다. And I think the most important thing is that you can feel home anywhere around the world as long as you have a community of people that you can really feel connected to. And all of these 4 places, I do have at least 1 or 2 people that I could say that I could really well be connected. So yeah, they all have, in a way, they all have special places in my heart. Have you ever experienced identity crisis? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I consider myself a third culture kid, even though when I say this, it may sound a little odd to some people, especially in South Korea, because they are so used to seeing me so well presented, well spoken in news anchor positions, right? But in order to look that part, I actually worked really, really hard to perfect my Korean. But it goes the same way for any languages, like to English or to German. And I think a lot of third culture kids, including myself, go through a lot of cultural identity crisis, especially because they have moved around growing up, and solidifying and figuring out one's identity is definitely one of the biggest internal struggles that one experiences. And I think this will continue to be the case for me. It's a never-ending issue because we're always growing, we're always finding new things about ourselves. But one thing that I want to point out is that I am incredibly grateful that I have had these experiences so that I have a lot wider horizon, a lot wider perspectives to see the world and how I perceive the world with open-mindedness, with flexibility, but while also knowing my social boundaries. So I feel like all these characteristics that I have just listed are very important in one's self-growth and to be more exposed to different types of cultures, histories, and different kinds of people are very important because it also gives you a different perspective to understand each other's culture. 어떻게 언어 공부를 하셨나요? And I think this goes well with the language as well. You know, I actually saw a very interesting video by this Korean 목사님, and I will post a link down below so you guys could watch it. But basically, he was talking about why people struggle with their own laziness. And if you are struggling with laziness, you actually need to look at what it is that you are lazy about. And if you always have a tendency to procrastinate, then it means that you're just not passionate about that subject. So it shows your priority, what you are intentionally passionate about. And with language, I think you really need to be passionate about learning that language. And language is just one thing. When you learn a language, it means that you are learning that particular country's or the people who speak that language, their mindset, their culture. Language is just a tool to learn all these different things so that you can have a wider perspective and a lot more flexible interactions with them. And for me, I had a specific goal that I really wanted to achieve, which was to make a lot of friends, non-Korean friends, to learn more about them. And that always drove me to study harder, learn harder, and find ways that worked the best for me to learn quickly. 직장다니며 유학, GRE 병행하다 보니 너무 어려워요. 힘드니까 나이, 또 불투명한 미래 등 부정적 생각이 많이 드는데 세미님은 연고 없는 해외에서 외롭지 않으신가요? 미국과 유럽 살아보신 차이점도 궁금해요. 하트라고 보내주셨어요. Yeah, studying abroad should be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. And a lot of people, especially a lot of Koreans, have a wrong understanding of studying abroad. It's something that only rich people do, which partially it is true. But on the other half, it's not true. In my case, I invested all my savings to my study to go to the UK this time to support myself for my master's. And there are a lot of different cases. And second misconception about studying abroad is that it's going to be easy once you just go there, and learning language is just going to be like that because you're starting to live there. But it's not like that. I have seen so many people, especially Korean kids, Korean students, who could not speak a word in a discussion, in a debate, in classes, because they simply just did not try. When I was in high school, my new goal is to perfect my English as good as it can be, to the point where people who meet me on the street would tell me that, oh, so you actually were born in South Korea? You were never born here? That was exactly the kind of the level of English that I wanted to get. And I have achieved that because I set a very, very specific goal. It may take years, and it's supposed to take years. Language is not something that you can learn like that. When you're a little baby, it takes you at least few years since you were born to say a word, not even a sentence, a word like mom or dad. 연고 없는 해외에서 외롭지 않으신가요? 라는 질문에 대해서는 제가 열정 on air라는 책을 2015년에 출간을 했었을 때 한 인터뷰에서 이렇게 얘기를 했었어요. 해외에서 오랜 시간을 지내면서 특히 언어를 마스터하기 위해서 저는 오랜 기간 같은 학교에 있었던 한국인 유학생 언니 오빠들 또는 친구들과 거리를 두고 아예 정말 미국 친구들이랑만 말을 하려고 엄청 애를 썼었어요. 그때 같이 있었던 동기나 언니 오빠들은 저를 막 꼴값 떤다고 되게 싫어했었겠죠. 근데 저한테는 it was a matter of survival, whether I make it or I go back home failure, and the latter was not in my vision. 저는 어떻게 해서든 언어를 정확하게 언어를 마스터하고 싶었고, 그래서 외로움, 물론 외롭지만 외로움을 수용할 줄 아는 어느 정도의 포용력을 깨닫게 된 것 같아요. 그래서 그 어떤 것도 내가 원하는 것이 있다면 그것에 대한 대가를 치러야 한다라는 것 역시 어렸을 때 좀 알게 됐었던 것 같아요. 그래서 물론 외로움을 안 느끼는 인간은 없겠죠. 결혼을 해서도 외롭다고들 하니까요. 근데 그 외로움이 나에게 있구나, 나는 지금 외로움을 느끼고 있구나, 솔직하게 나 자신한테 인정을 하고 인식하고 그러면서 건강하게 내가 몰두할 수 있는 것에 최대한 최대한 관심을 돌리는 것으로 해결하려고 했었던 것 같아요. 미국과 유럽 살아보신 차이점, 네, 미국은 앞서서 이제 제가 제 저널에 이야기를 했었던 것처럼 미국에서는 제가 독일에 있을 때만 해도 그렇게 많이 느끼지는 못했던 아시안에 대한 컨셉의 차이에 대해서 많이 느끼게 된 것이 이제 이번에 영국에 가면서인데, 미국에서는 Asian이라고 하면 보통 China, Korea, Japan을 뜻해요. 그런데 영국에서는 Asian이라 하면 대부분 Southeast Asian, 그러니까 영국의 colonization을 겪었던 그 위치에 있었던 대부분의 나라들을 아시안이라고 하고, 이제 한국, 중국, 일본 같은 경우, 중국은 아예 그냥 중국 그대로예요. 중국은 따로 번외 아시아보다. 그리고 한국, 일본 같은 경우는 Far East라고 그래요. 그래서 저는 그냥 Asian도 아닌 I'm a Far East Asian인 거예요. 그게 너무 좀 충격이었어요. 뭐냐면 미국에서는 항상 Asian 하면은 아시아의 약간 중심은 한중일이라고 생각을 했었는데, 그게 아니라 영국은 워낙 이 대영 제국의 역사가 크고 colonized countries에서 있었던 사람들 역시 많이들 영국에 와서 다시금 일을 하고 살기 때문에 영국에서의 아시안이라는 특히나 이제 코리안의 입지는 굉장히 작았었어요. 그런데 이제 최근에 들어서 조금 그게 나아졌다라고 제가 들었고, 그러니 영국에서 축구 선수로 이제 정말 활약하고 있는 손흥민 선수마저도 얼마나 영국의 못된 레이시즘과 관련해서 상처가 많으시겠어요. 그래서 유럽에서 정말 오랫동안 자고 날았던 어떤 Koreans 또는 Japanese 이런 분들이 아닌 이상은, 저는 솔직히 영국에 살면서 이 나라에서 살고 싶다? 라는 생각은 1년이 지나고 나니까 정확하게 들었던 것 같아요. 물론 이 생각이 또 바뀔 수도 있죠. Depending on the kind of life opportunities unfold. 그런데 정말 한 1년이 지나고 나서는 even though I have a lot of good friends over there and I would hate to say goodbye to them, but
I had many reasons for relocation.
Any tips for someone who is going to apply to LSE? Well, I mean, I don't know whether you are applying to LSE for undergrad programs or graduate programs. If you're applying for graduate programs, I think I could definitely advise you a few things. If you want to get into the LSE program, just make sure that you watch this video that I made about how to apply to LSE, the tips for all the applications. The second thing that I want to say is that you will have opportunities to work with some of the best scholars and educators around the world who are directly making impacts in policies and a lot of different aspects around the world. But also be aware that LSE is a very elite institution, and elite institutions have their merits and also have
weaknesses.
So my tip would be aware of the environment that you're getting into, the institution that you're getting into. Be willing to learn from others, from your friends, not just your professors, and be kind to one another. At LSE, connections that you build there will be the lifelong career connections that you will have. The next question is regarding my confidence. You seem so confident. Well, thank you. I actually, I don't think I'm always confident. I also struggle with my own insecurities, and who doesn't? You know, I think it's something that every human being would struggle with for the rest of their lives. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, but it's just, as long as you know when you are low on your self-esteem and self-confidence and how you can get back on your 2 feet, then you're all set. And especially with my broadcasting career, where I had to look a certain way, even though I may not always feel so completely confident, you have to look the part. And I've learned how to do that, which is a very good skill to have, but also the ranges of experiences in life that you get will help you a lot to build that confidence, because the more you take risks, the more you learn through the processes, and just get away from your comfort zones. That's the best way to learn more about yourself, how much you can grow, and also build your self-confidence. 자, 20대와 30대 가장 달라진 점이 있다면, well, I think when I was in my 20s, it was always go, 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 and just, you know, do more, achieve more. In my 30s, I'm still struggling with a lot of the same questions that I struggle with in my 20s.
30대가 되었다고 해서 20대 했던 고민과 질문들이 딱 끊기는 건 아닌 것 같아요. 단지 고민의 강도와 또 30대가 되어서 처해진 상황과 환경이 달라진 것일 뿐.
Especially because I'm still in that quest of challenging myself to be the better version of myself from yesterday. But every year, I write down my New Year's resolutions, and one of them has always been founding my own family. And you know, obviously that hasn't come true, so that's still on my list. So, do you still perform classically these days? Yes, I do. And I actually am serving as a board member for piano arts competition in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I am speaking with them about giving a speech consulting to the competition participants. If you have concern or worries about career path, how do you solve this problem? You know, the other day I saw Ray Dalio's post, and he wrote this: in order to succeed, you start with problems. You start with setting goals, then problems, diagnosis, design, and then do it. In your entire life, that's what you're going to repeat, the cycle. And this is the kind of approach that I like to take with my own career path or problems that I face in my life. But I also rely a lot on God. As I have shared many times in my YouTube channel, I do quiet time every morning. I try to ask God where I should be heading to, what I should be doing. And oftentimes while I do my quiet time, while I'm in my prayer, I find wisdom. And
of course, it's not always super clear or explicit. That's why we do quiet time, to better hear God's voice.
But oftentimes, I do a lot of good inspirations from quiet time. And one thing that I try to avoid is taking someone else's advice completely. Like, I consult my friends, the people that I really trust, and they give me very good advice, helpful advice, tips and suggestions. But I always take time to process these advice that I get, and also ask God whether, is this right? There's a saying that whenever you are having a struggle, don't rely on money, people, but God. So that's sort of my take. 저의 롤모델인 세미님과 식사나 차 한잔 하고 싶은데 가능할까요? Let me think about that. 언제 하나님을 만나게 되셨나요? This is a very, very good question. I actually have a lot of faith-related videos that I'll also put a link above. But yeah, if you are interested in knowing how I met God, then please write down a comment down below. Then I'll consider making a separate video because it'll be long. Does SBS hire in LA? To my knowledge, no. So, okay, I hopefully answered most of the questions. I know I'm missing out a few because I just simply didn't have time, but there are some questions that kind of fell below those big categories that I talked about. So hopefully that was helpful, and yeah, thank you so much for always being there for me, and I would love to keep on sharing what I learned through my life and keep on documenting my journey with you. So stay healthy, and I'll catch you guys the next time on Sing Me Full. Ciao!